This video will be a commentary on both the short story The Closing Hand and its author, Farnsworth Wright. If you have not heard or read the story, you should do so before listening to this video, since there will be spoilers. A link to my reading of the story can be found in the description. Farnsworth Wright was born in 1888 and lived until 1940. He was best known for his work as editor of Weird Tales magazine. He began his career as a reporter for a newspaper, but was drafted during World War I. He then worked as a music critic for several publications. When Weird Tales came along, he worked for Weird Tales as the chief manuscript reader. Wright contributed several short stories to the magazine during its first year. The magazine's first year brought with it serious financial trouble. The magazine was $40,000 in debt. To avoid bankruptcy and to continue publishing, a new publishing company was created, with the debt holder owning a controlling interest in the new company, and editor Edwin Baird was fired. Weird Tales needed a new editor, so the job was offered to Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Lovecraft, however, rejected the offer because he didn't want to leave New York, and the editor position would have required him to move to Chicago, where Weird Tales was headquartered. So the job was given to Farnsworth Wright. Farnsworth Wright worked as editor from 1924 to 1940. However, his health quickly became an issue, as he had developed Parkinson's disease in 1921, and he was soon unable to sign his name, instead signing everything with only his initials, F.W., and eventually he needed help from the business manager to get to work and back home every day. Despite suffering from such a serious illness, Farnsworth Wright was by far the most successful editor of Weird Tales. The magazine would be considered in its golden years while Wright was editor. He was known for accepting a wide variety of stories, including those that did not neatly fit into the category of weird fiction. He also preferred shorter stories and rejected some of Lovecraft's most famous stories because of their length. He was also known for taking risks by publishing new authors' first stories. Farnsworth also apparently really liked Shakespeare, and in 1925 tried to publish Shakespeare's plays with updated language in a pulp format called Wright's Shakespeare Library. Only A Midsummer Night's Dream was published. It was advertised in Weird Tales, but it was a commercial failure. Farnsworth was well liked as editor of Weird Tales, but in 1941, his symptoms from Parkinson's were so severe he could no longer continue working. After Wright left, several writers threatened to boycott the magazine, and apparently expected Wright to start a competing pulp magazine. However, only a few months after leaving Weird Tales, Farnsworth Wright died. Wright's nephew, David Wright O'Brien, was a very prolific pulp fiction writer. Many of his stories were published in Amazing Stories and Fantastic Adventures. However, he was killed in World War II, apparently shot down over Berlin. Wright's niece, Paula Raymond, was an actress. The Closing Hand is a short story that was published in the very first issue of Weird Tales. At first glance, it seems to be a very simple story, and the twist at the end is pretty predictable. It seems that only the eerie setting of the old rundown Gothic mansion and grotesque history qualifies this as a weird tale. However, it's possible that there is a bit more, and after thinking about the story, I have a few questions that are unanswered in the story. In the story, two sisters are alone at night in a large and frightening mansion, one that the locals avoid out of fear, going as far as to cross the street while passing it. The house has a dark history. A girl was killed there, stabbed in the heart mysteriously and found dead in her bedroom. After this, no family had lived in the house longer than a few months. Apparently no one can bear to live there any longer. The sisters and their parents only moved in recently, but on the night the story takes place, both parents are away. The younger sister expresses her fear of the house, and of the mysterious demise of the elder Berkheimer sister who was killed in the house long ago, and of the ghost that may haunt the home. The older sister ridicules her for believing in such nonsense, and says they must remain at home to protect the family's valuables from burglars. The mention of burglars gives the younger sister yet another thing to fear. The girls hear a sound downstairs. The older sister leaves to investigate, but the younger sister cowers in her bed. She listens to the sounds downstairs, imagining all the horrors that must be down there. She hears the sounds die down, and then increase again, and then she hears something ascending the staircase. Not the sound of footsteps, but more of a dragging sound. She sits petrified in her bed in the dark. The sound reaches the top of the stairs, drags itself into her bedroom, and up to her bed. She imagines all the horrible things it could be. A murderer, the ghost of the Berkheim girl, some monster. She musters all the courage that she has, and reaches out towards whatever's there. She touches something. It's wet and clammy. It grabs her hand and holds on to her. She screams and then faints from the terror. She wakes in the morning to find the body of her dead sister, stabbed in the heart, covered in blood, holding onto her hands. She must have confronted a burglar downstairs, been mortally wounded in the struggle, and then dragged herself upstairs to enlist the help of her younger sister. Like I said, it's a fairly straightforward story. Only the setting, history of violence, and the rumors of hauntings and the younger sister's imagination make the story weird. The actual events of the story are horrible, sad, unfortunate, but nothing supernatural, nothing particularly weird. In my opinion, Farnsworth Wright does a great job of capturing the terrified imagination of the younger sister. He spends time describing the setting from the perspective of the younger sister, and what she imagines and what she feels. This is what I like best about the story. I'm a little bit unsure what the moral of the story is meant to be. It could be that had the younger sister conquered her fear, she may have helped her sister. But from the description of her injury in the story, this seems unlikely. And if she had gone downstairs, she may even have been killed as well. One thing I wonder about the story is the parallel between the events of the story and the story's reference to the previous murder in the home, the older Berkheim sister. Both murdered girls were an older sister. Both murdered girls died in their bedroom, possibly the same room in the house, possibly the exact same place. And both girls were killed by the same method, being stabbed in the heart. If we believe, as the story suggests, that the girl in the story was killed by a burglar, should we believe the same as happens to the Berkheim sister? Are the similarities merely coincidence, or is there something else going on in the house that isn't explicitly written? Maybe the house is haunted, or maybe it's some curse. In any case, the events of the story are not likely to have any positive influence on the reputation of the old imposing mansion. That's all I have to say about this story. If you enjoyed either listening to the story or my commentary on it, make sure you click and subscribe, and click the bell if you want to be notified of new stories and commentary on those stories. If you want to say something about the story or author that I didn't mention, or if you want to correct me on something or disagree with something I said, post a comment below.